Good evening, everyone. My name is John Taves, and I'm the event coordinator at McNally Robinson Booksellers. We're broadcasting live tonight from Treaty 1 territory, the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Ojibwe, Dakota, and Dene peoples, the homeland of the Métis Nation. You're in for a treat tonight, as we're here to celebrate the virtual launch of Journeyman, the story of NHL right-winger Jamie Leach, published by Yellow Dog, which is a subsidiary of Great Plains Publications. At the end of the evening, there may be some time for some questions, so if anything does occur to you over the course of the night, please feel free to just write it in the Q&A box that you'll find right near the bottom of your screen. Rest assured that you won't disturb the conversation if you put a question in there, and if we do have time for questions at the end, we'll be sure to pose it to tonight's panelists. And we do have a number of very interesting panelists here tonight. The author of this book, Anna Rosner, teaches French at York University, writes children's stories, and is the published author of short story fiction and numerous scholarly articles. Dedicated to promoting her love for words, Anna has taught language and literacy to children and adults ages 5 to 75. Anna is the director of Books with Wings, which provides brand new, quality picture books for Indigenous children who reside in isolated Canadian communities. Journeyman is her first book. Jamie Leach is a former NHL player who won the Stanley Cup with the Pittsburgh Penguins in 1991 and 1992. He is the owner and president of Shoot to Score Hockey, which offers training camps and mentorships for young hockey players. Finally, Reggie Leach was inducted into the Manitoba Hockey Hall of Fame in 2019 after a prolific career in the NHL, playing for the Boston Bruins, California Golden Seals, Philadelphia Flyers, and Detroit Red Wings. He is a recipient of the Order of Canada and the Order of Manitoba. But that's enough for me. I'll be back at the end of the evening to let you know how you can go about getting a copy of this book. But for now, please join me in putting your virtual hands together for the author, Anna Rosner.
Hi there. So I was asked to talk a little bit about how and why I wrote this book. And I am the director of Books with Wings, which is a First Nations literacy project, as John mentioned. And we send books and personal letters to children who live on isolated reserves. And most of those reserves are in northern Manitoba. And when the children respond to us, they choose the types of books that they want to receive. And hockey is always number one on the list, along with Fortnite, I think, things like that. The kids really love hockey because in small communities, there's not a whole lot of entertainment. I think there's no movie theaters and no public libraries, but there usually is an arena. So children kind of grow up on the rink. So I wanted to write a story that would resonate with them. I really want to write a book for them. And I went in search of an Indigenous hockey player, and I spoke to Reggie on the phone, and was eventually led to Jamie. And the more I learned about Jamie's story, the more I understood that he was the right man for the job. And as he had been through a lot of ups and downs, I guess, in his life, through the majors and the minor leagues. And he had a movie star beginning a little bit with a famous father. And I just liked everything about his story. So The Journeyman traces his life from childhood all the way to his first NHL goal. And the writing of the book was actually quite lengthy, probably a couple of years. And when I first started, I looked at a lot of hockey databases, hundreds of times, and also archived newspaper articles and photographs even. And I began to interview Jamie and his mother, Isabel, extensively. And Isabel was a huge help to me, especially for the early years of Jamie's life, because of course children don't remember things the same way. So I relied heavily on her memories for the beginning of the book. And she was also a good editor in some ways, because at one point, she asked me, she sort of suggested my ending wasn't quite right. And at the same moment, my own editor from Great Plains suggested the same thing. So it was almost 2 against 1. And I changed my ending and it became much better, thanks to both of them. So she was a great help in the process. And of course, then Jamie and my interviews were also quite lengthy. And Jamie was great at describing his life, especially how he felt as he moved through the major and minor leagues. And he was great at describing hockey, which was good because I wasn't so great at describing hockey. And I often quoted him directly from the book. At one point I asked him to describe Yager, who is one of the greatest NHL players who ever lived. I asked him to describe his playing, and he said, "Oh, Yager was a dynamite player, and the goals were just exploding off his stick," or something like that. And I just essentially copied that, word for word directly into the book, because I really couldn't do much better. So there are a lot of direct quotes from Jamie, and a lot of emails over the years and to get things just right. So that's essentially it. I pieced together the book, through the newspaper articles, through the databases, through Isabel's and Jamie's memories, and tried to weave a narrative from everything that I had, and that was the Journeyman. Yeah. So now I'm going to ask Jamie some questions. If you want to activate your camera, Jamie.
Nope.
And Reggie too. Yeah. Great. So my first question, Jamie, is how does it feel to have someone pry into your life for more than 2 years and try to convince you to reveal all your secrets? Not to mention a stranger.
Well, so I don't have the best memory. So a lot of the stuff that you brought up was actually good, because I couldn't remember, or I didn't recall it right then and there, and then all of a sudden it came back. So, that's when I would start jabbering on about different things. So, and it wasn't too many secrets in my life that I was concerned. I don't have too many secrets, so I'm not I got nothing to hide. But it was neat to kind of relive and just have reminders of things that happened, with myself, and also having stuff that, like you said, as a child, I didn't remember, certain things as a child. I was told certain things, but I didn't remember certain things as a child. So,
Yeah.
And just going back and reliving, and for you reading all the newspaper articles and stuff, it was neat, because I actually went back as well. So it was kind of to really relive memories. So that was really neat. So, I mean, it wasn't a hassle at all. I really enjoyed the whole process.
Oh, good.
So, it's, yeah, like you said, it was a long journey, and I'm glad we finally got here.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And thank you, by the way, for taking the hundreds of emails that I sent over the years. It was fun.
I'm not a good writer. You're a good writer. When I have to write a long email, it takes me forever. So I apologize if I'm in the real short, because
No.
I can do it.
You did a great job. So the book discusses what it was like to be Reggie's son, as a child, but it doesn't really talk about what it was like to be his son while you were in the NHL. And I'm wondering if, your father ever intervened on your behalf to help you, or if your teammates or coaches treated you differently because you had a famous dad.
Well, it wasn't a secret. So, I mean, it doesn't matter where I went, how old I was, whatever I went to the arena, everyone knew, who my dad was. So it was something that I was pretty well used to, growing up, for as long as I can remember. But one thing that I think, hanging around my dad and his teammates and the Flyers or Red Wings, it kind of prepared me to become a professional. So one thing, when you play junior, they always say, once you turn pro, it's a lot different life. There's no holding your hand anymore. You're kind of on your own. And I think just experiencing the things that I experienced growing up and hanging around the locker room and is when I did turn pro, there was no surprises. I knew how I was supposed to act. I knew what was my responsibility. So that definitely helped me tremendously. I was lucky to play, with Tim Kerr, who was one of Dad's teammates in Philadelphia, and I played it with Kerr, with Timmy, when we were in Hartford, and we actually became really kind of good friends. And he was actually my euchre partner for a long time. So we actually played a lot of cards together. So things like that. And even now, when I see the old Flyers, we have a special. They've known me since I've been 3-4 years old, and it's kind of nice to kind of have that special relationship with those kind of players, and that's all just through my dad going through it and then kind of following his footsteps.
Okay, so you consider yourself lucky, I guess, for
I consider myself lucky now, right? I mean, back then it was the norm. It was the norm to have Bobby Clarke come over to our house and to our house, and even walking to the Pittsburgh Penguins locker room and sitting beside Paul Coffey to me was just, it was special. Don't get me wrong, but it was Paul Coffey, Bobby Clarke, right? It's kind of the same thing. But I think I actually really I understand how neat it was, or how special it was growing up in that environment. And I got to skate the Spectrum by myself. But when the Flyers were done, I got to go on that. As you mentioned the book, right? But a lot of times I got to go by myself, and it would be me and the guys cleaning the seats, right? Which was kind of cool. I mean, how many 6, 7, 8-year-olds get to skate on the Philadelphia Spectrum ice by themselves? So there's so many things that I was, it was normal then, but now I just appreciate it so much.
Yeah, it's an amazing beginning. Yeah, I think a lot of kids would be jealous for sure. Yeah. So you and Reggie visit First Nations communities to teach hockey and life skills to children every year through your school Shoot to Score. And I'm wondering if you've ever made any special connections with children in those communities that have touched you and touched your life.
Well, there's numerous. I mean, I get just with the book coming out, I've had 200 or 300 emails, or messages. So, but yeah, I mean, players, coaches, the people that would set up the camps, so we actually, we actually developed a good relationship with a lot of them. A lot of the community we actually have gone back to a number of times. So we actually developed a huge relationship. And one thing that we both like doing when we go back to those communities is seeing the development of the player or the person. It doesn't have to be a hockey skill, could be a life skill. It's just going back, and it's neat when we go back. There's the smiles on their faces when we show up. Hey Reggie, how's it going? Hey Jamie, how's it going? So glad you're back. Come give you a big hug, and which is good. And that's the one thing that we really cherish is we love going to visit those communities because and develop those special relationships and bonds, and then having the opportunity to come back and see how they're developing.
Yes, absolutely. And when kids, sort of grow up and they're ready for a higher league, do they tend to leave the community in order to pursue that, or? Well,
they pretty well have to, right? Like you mentioned earlier, there's they have to kind of leave their home to if they do want to pursue the game of hockey, and we've met a number of players that have left their community and had to go move down to Edmonton or whatever if they want. And the one thing that we try to instill in them is we know it's hard. We know when these young people leave their home, we understand how tough it is to leave that comfort zone. And definitely, one thing that we really try to instill in them is, don't give it 2 or 3 days. Give it a really good try.
Right.
And
stick it out.
Stick it out for a little bit. I always say that when I talk to parents about their child's hockey careers, we'll call it a career, when they're 8.
Yeah.
It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. So we're hoping that when players do leave, that they can go down and give it a good try, and then if it doesn't work out, home is always there. It'll always be there
Yeah.
for you. You'll experience things, and you can always come back to home. So, but yeah, no, it's we've visited now close to almost 100 different communities, and we're very proud of that.
Wow. Yeah, no, it's wonderful. I'm sure they look forward to it. So if you could choose, this is actually a question for Reggie too. I have the same question for both of you. Reggie, if you want to come on. Everybody's hiding.
Hello.
Hi. So, Jamie, if you could choose one hockey memory that made you who you are as a person, or that most impacted your life, what would it be?
There's not one, right? There's not one. And the one that you touched on in the book was the time that I went to Detroit with my two teammates that were supposed to get way ahead of me, and I wasn't even supposed to go because I had to go in the first 3 rounds, and that was, maybe I'm a little bit better than I think I am, kind of thing. I wanted to get drafted, but sitting there going, Pittsburgh Penguins select from the Hamilton Steelhawks. I'm like, okay, good. I was literally reaching over to congratulate him. All of a sudden, they said my name, and I was like, holy cow, I just got drafted, right? So that's probably the main one. There's so many, but that for sure, because I was kind of on the fence at that time to see where I really was, and then to have the NHL, the Pittsburgh Penguins just draft me was amazing, because like I said, I wasn't really supposed to go in the first 3 rounds of that year, but it was obviously I was pretty pumped that I did.
Yeah, huge shock. Yeah. And Reggie, what about you? Is there one? I know you have thousands of hockey memories, but is there one memory that made you who you are as a person, or that most impacted you?
I think for myself is that, just growing up in Riverton, Manitoba, and having everybody there support me as a young hockey player. And, when I was, just before I was going to junior hockey, and we had a gentleman there named Siggy Johnson, and you're being at 14, 15, 16 years old, you're starting to go on the wrong track and stuff like that. And he took me aside and gave me a really good talking to, and he's the one that says that to me, that said, Reg, if you don't leave your hometown in Riverton, you're gonna end up staying here the rest of your life. And I wanted to be a hockey player. That's all I knew what I wanted to do, and then that's all I knew how to play. And I knew I was good at it at a young age, and I ended up going to Flin Flon, and I ended up there for the next 4 years, and that was a big change in my life. Also, was going up to Flin Flon and running into Mr. Clark. Mr. Clark and I become really good friends over the 4 years, and we are still best of friends today. And I think those are the two that really I think impacted my whole life of going into the professionals and who I am today.
And being in Flin Flon, yeah.
Yes.
All right. And another question about the children, with whom you work in these communities. How do you envision the future for Indigenous children who want to play hockey, or who dream of playing hockey in the big leagues today? Well,
the thing is that, I'm very proud of Jamie, of what he has become, and the businessman he is today with Shoot to Soap, with the Shoot to Score program and that. And I, we always talk about it, is that I work for him now, right? Once in a while. So he's my boss. But I think overall is that what he has done with that, with the staff that we have, and the professional staff, and the way we developed the Shoot to Score program and everything across all these communities, and to me, and these young kids that come in, it's just unbelievable of seeing these kids with happy faces and meeting us there in the morning when you're there early in the morning, stuff like that, and I know that Jamie will say something about this. He always says, I'm old school still. I still love giving young kids a nice hug for doing something and stuff like that. And Jamie's always, Dad, you can't do that anymore. So those are things that I can remember, and talking to everybody that comes to the arena, all these parents that come out and watch their kids play, and I, for me, it's no better than it's a great thing to have these kids skating and everything, and especially having their parents there watch them. That's very special to see that. And I know some of the communities that we go into, we have lots of people, lots of parents, grandparents watching and young kids, and that's what the Shoot to Score program is all about. And these young kids that we have today, enthusiast kid, is that we have to show them respect, lead them in the right direction, give them something positive to go for right now. I know that a lot of them live in these isolated First Nation communities across the country, and like Jamie just said, is that there's only one way to get out, and it's either sports or else get an education. So all these things are combined, is that the community's got to help these kids get out and move on. Sports is just a small part of it. There's so many other elements of these young kids to make something of themselves, and I know that I just love talking to these kids all the time and trying to get them to do the right thing and stuff like that, because we all make mistakes. I made mistakes all my life, and we just have to get these kids on the right track and get them to be successful at what they want to do. And like Jamie just said, is that when you move away, give it a chance. Doesn't matter if it's school or hockey or sports, anything. Give it a chance. And I always say is that most of the time when our kids go back home, they miss their friends, but their friends are all going to be there. Doesn't matter. We go away for 5 years, those kids still are going to be in the same spot 5 years later. So they're not going anyplace. So it's something that you have to promote these kids to, let these kids be number one. Be yourself. Do all the right things for yourself and move on.
I like what you said, in fact, about hockey and the grandparents watching their grandchildren and parents. It really does, I think, bring families together in a lot of ways. I mean, even my own, I wasn't a huge hockey fan when I got married, and now I'm the one screaming the loudest, at the Toronto Maple Leafs. I'm a Leafs fan, sorry, but it's just, I think it's something we do together, and I watch the games, and I'm sort of a bit of a hockey mom now, so.
Yeah, I think it's a big boost for the kids to have their parents and grandparents to come and see them play. I know that a lot of the parents are working when we have the Shoot to Score programs going, but I know on Fridays when we have games and that, there's a lot of parents coming up to watch the play the little games and stuff, and that's a big boost for all these kids that come out and work hard all week and everything else. And it's I know this year I haven't taught any hockey schools, but it's something that I really miss, being around the kids and everything else. But that's something that I think the Shoot to Score program is to keep the kids on the right track and let them have fun. And, they're all young ages. They're not, like Jamie just said, is that they're 8, 9 years old. They're not going to be, they're superstars at their age group right now, but they're not professionals yet. But it takes a lot of work to become a professional.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So I think John is now going to ask their questions from the audience. I think John's going to field those. Yeah.
Logan? Yes, so we do have a few questions. The first one comes from, and forgive me if I mispronounce anyone's last name, but Nikki Gunner, who asks, you, Anna, there is one question for you. Did you know from the first that this will be a book for young people, and did you ever consider writing it as an adult book?
No, the original Journeyman, Jamie, you probably remember this, was a 3-page children's book. It was really, really short. So it was always a children's book, although I do think Jamie's, one day Jamie should write his own biography, maybe for adults. But no, I always wanted to write it for the children in Books with Wings. So that was always my intention. So yeah, thanks, Nikki.
The problem is if I wrote it, it'd be 3 pages. That's the problem.
Yeah. So.
Mel Martinet has a question for Jamie, and she was wondering, do you have a favorite hockey or sport book?
Oh, you know what? Right now, I'm not reading. I don't read a bunch of sports books right now. You know what I read? I read lots of drill books. every time a drill book comes in, a new drill book comes in, I pick it up because I always want to see, what's out there and different
There you
ideas.
go.
And I do watch quite a bit of YouTube for drills and all that kind of stuff. I haven't read a sports book in a long. I can't even tell you what was the last time I read a sports book. Sorry about that. I know that's not the greatest answer, but I just read lots of drill stuff.
Well, there's one last question, actually, just before we wind everything down. And this is a question for anybody who'd like to answer. What is your advice to hockey kids and parents on how to play hockey and stay safe during the pandemic?
Oh, that's a tough one. Obviously, like we're here in Winnipeg, we're open, not fully completely open, but I mean every arena we're going to now is got different guidelines and different protocols, and the one thing I gotta say to the parents and players, do all you can to be safe right now. This is obviously an unprecedented time that we haven't seen in a long time, not in my lifetime anyway, and hopefully I don't see it again when this is done. But follow the rules, wear a mask, all the stuff you hear from the health experts. I mean, all our rinks here in Manitoba are fairly marked, and you walk in the door and there's sanitizer there, and you have to wear a mask. But the hardest part, and I found this right when we got on the ice, is to try and keep the kids away from each other as best as we can while we're training. Right? It's not the easiest thing to do. We are trying the best we can. We're trying to have players social distance on the ice, especially when we bring them in to explain something, or especially a drill. So it's the small things that we're trying to learn it as we go. But I mean, the things that are put in place now for players and parents, please follow that. Let's try and get through this together so we can start having full capacity arenas and everyone join the game. And like we talked about earlier, grandparents, aunts and uncles, even right now, here in Manitoba, you're not even allowed to bring your siblings into the rink, right? So it has to be a parent or two. So let's just do all we have to and get through this, and hopefully, it'll be done soon.
No, thank you, Jamie. So we have one comment and then one more question, and then I'll invite you all to wind things down as you'd like. So Bonnie Lawrence wanted to say that she really enjoyed the story, even though she's not really a hockey fan, and she passed it on to her grandson. David Allen had one final question for you, Jamie. What do you tell young kids who seriously want to make it in the NHL?
I think the one thing that you have to relay to them, and especially their parents. I mean, because their parents are so hands-on nowadays. You have to kind of explain to them the commitment that it takes. Or the players in the National Hockey League, or even not even NHL, just the players who are playing professionally right now, they are doing everything they possibly can, because it is now a business. It is no doubt a business. You wouldn't believe how these players eat, their diets. And it's almost a science, right? They're eating properly. They know how much rest to get. They know how much training they have to do off the ice. And my first thing would say is just explain that to them, how the process it is to get there. But it has to be fun. That's the end of the story. If it's fun for you, then go at it, go ahead. But when it starts becoming a job at 10, 11, 12, you might want to, rethink it or just kind of change your mindset a little bit. It's a long road. It's a lot of work. But if you get there, it's so worth it.
No, thank you, Jamie. So at this point, I'd just like to invite you all, if you have any last words you might like to impart before I go over some procedural details at the end, please feel free to say your goodbyes.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jamie, for putting up with me for so long. and Reggie too.
No, thank you, Anna. Everything, the process was a lot easier for me than it was for you. So
Yeah, I love doing it. It really was great.
Alana, it takes a lot of work to write a book, and I know it. I've talked to Jamie about he said that he didn't do that much, but it's a lot of thinking, a lot of memories that you have to go back on and stuff like that, and I have read the book, and I think it's a wonderful, wonderful book. I think you guys did a great job. And,
Oh, thank
very
you.
proud of you.
Thank you. That means a lot.
No. And thank you all so very much for joining us here tonight to talk about the book. The book is Journeyman, the story of NHL right-winger Jamie Leach. It is available at McNally Robinson Booksellers. If you'd like, you can order it over the phone. You can order it online. You can come and visit us in the store. We are practicing social distancing, but we are opening. And you can also order it and have it shipped nationally or even within Winnipeg. You don't even need to leave your house to acquire a copy of Journeyman. But in the end, somebody in the chat, Dawn just mentioned, congratulations to Jamie, Anna, and Reggie for sharing a story that inspires all. And I'd like to thank you all so very much for exactly that and for taking the time to be with us here this evening. Thank you to everybody in the chat room and joining us here, both in Zoom and on YouTube now and in the future, as this video will remain up if you'd like to watch it or share it with anybody else. Thank you all for your time and your consideration. It's been a real pleasure spending the evening with you. Have a very good night.
Thank you. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank you,
Jamie.
John.
Bye, Reggie.
Nice.